to Paranormal Gumbo with your hosts, Angel and Aaron.
Welcome to Paranormal Gumbo, where we cover everything paranormal, mysterious, and spooky with a little side of humor. I'm Angel.
And I'm Aaron. A big side of humor.
I stand corrected. If you have any paranormal stories or any ideas for things that you would like us to cover, just send us an email at paranormalgumbo@gmail.com. You can also go to our paranormalgumbo.com website and you can fill out a contact us form and just tell us whatever you'd like to tell us. We also have a Paranormal Gumbo Facebook site and we're on Twitter. Let's talk about the latest paranormal news. I read a little something that really surprised me. There is a doctor, he's a professor at Oxford University, and he teaches Korean. But his name is Dr. I'm going to butcher this, but Dr. Young Hae Chi. Anyways, basically, he believes that there are human alien hybrids that are colonizing the earth because he believes that due to climate change, we're not going to be able to continue as humans to survive. So these aliens are coming and they're breeding with humans to develop some sort of a race that can withstand the climate change.
That's always been one of the things that people have been talking about with aliens abducting people. Maybe they're getting DNA, maybe they're making hybrids. I mean, it goes all the way back to, some of the first alien movies that I saw in the 80s. Whitley Sherber, with Communion. That's pretty much what his stuff is about.
Whitley Strieber.
Whitley. How about that?
That works.
Yeah, well, whenever he talks about being on the ship and he sees the children on board, that's basically what they are. That's what I gathered anyways.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
it is a pretty old concept, but I guess what surprises me is this is a professor at a major university. This is not just a local university. This is Oxford, and he's saying this stuff, and he has to have a reason to believe it. I mean, you're not generally going to just have a professor at Oxford University just throwing things out there because he thinks it sounds cool. So, and he actually wrote a book about it. The book is called Alien Visitations and the End of Humanity. And he said that there are 4 types of aliens. There are small aliens, tall and bold aliens, aliens with scales and snake eyes, and then there are insect-like aliens, like the praying mantis type of insect-looking alien. I'd love to have him on the show.
It would be interesting. I would love to talk to him about it, just to see what he thinks about, well, not really what he thinks, but does he think that maybe, hey, there are communities of these things around? Maybe this area right here is more prone to have some of the insectoid aliens, some of the lizard-type aliens. And I'm calling them lizard types because, hey, that's what everyone calls them. But, and if he does think that these are communities, there are communities of aliens out there, shit, let's go visit some. Let's go see if we can talk to some people out there.
Let's get some secrets. But I guess I should just read his book to begin with, but maybe we can have him on the show. We'll just have to see. It just seems to me like the whole concept of aliens is being discussed by more respected people than it used to be. It used to be just, people that were obscure people with not a whole lot of education, and people would say, oh, they're just crackpots.
Now we have
we have professional people, yeah. I almost feel like we're on the cusp of something big.
See, I'm going to go to the movie Paul here with Seth Rogen in it. Don't think you've ever seen it before, but it's friggin' absolutely hilarious. I love the movie. Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, they're amazing. I love
you can't
everybody.
go wrong with Simon Pegg. Every
single person in that movie, they just gel together so well. And one of the things that Paul kind of mentions is that over the past 60, 70 years, basically since Roswell, people have been fed this image of aliens in preparation to get them prepped up to see them in real life. Yeah. So whenever like they finally pop up, like, hey, what's up, guys? We're here. We're not like, holy shit, what the hell is that? You know, we're like, okay, hey, look, we've been seeing this guy for years.
That is a theory out there among some people who study the whole alien concept, is that everything that we see, especially looking at Close Encounters of the Third Kind, there are theories that actually happened, and that movie is based on what really happened, and that the whole purpose of that movie and E.T. and things like that are to get us used to seeing that type of thing so that we won't freak out, basically Orson Welles style, and jump out windows, you know, when they're revealed. I find it interesting that one thing that he, according to the article I read, didn't say was that they're necessarily from planets far away. According to the articles that I read, he's not necessarily saying that. They could just be from another dimension, maybe. One of the analogies he gave was the analogy of fish. Well, fish are underwater and they can't see us on land necessarily, or if they do, if they come to the top, they're not going to see us like they see each other underwater, right? And maybe it's the same with these aliens or whatever you want to call them, is that they're in some other dimension, or even if not dimension, just some other kind of capacity so that we don't necessarily see them, and vice versa.
That reminds me of the book or short story I read a while back. I'm looking the name up right now. Called Paper World, I believe it is. It's been years and years and years and years since I've read it. But basically, there's this whole entire universe that exists on paper, and they don't know that we're there. They can hear our voices every now and then, but basically, since they're two-dimensional, they can't see in three-dimensional. But yeah, I can maybe kind of see that, maybe alternate universes, alternate dimensions type of thing. And, you know, there's got to be something out there. And for the size that the universe is, you know, there's got to be other things. I would hope anyways. I hope we're not the only thing in the entire freaking universe.
Well, and it makes me wonder how many people nowadays actually believe in aliens. I wonder.
I think I looked it up a while back, and it's over 50%. I think it was closer to 70%. It was 50% of people believe in ghosts. 60% of people believe in aliens. And I guarantee you go back, 50 years, and that number is going to be drastically lower.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
The number of people that believe in ghosts probably stays the same, but aliens, I can guarantee you it's going to be drastic.
Right now, our main thing, we really want to get to the meat of our story with Mr. Calvin Parker and our interview with him and his wife, Miss Waynette Parker.
Not
Juanita. Aaron was calling her Juanita because he's a little daft.
Sorry about that.
She's delightful, by the way. She is such a sweet lady, and he is as well. And they were so gracious to be our very first interview. You know, that's kind of hard, getting your very first interview in a situation like this, and they were so kind and gave us their time. We sat down over a bowl of gumbo, and we just had a nice little talk.
Shot the shit for a little bit.
Yeah, we did. It's quite a long interview. We're going to divide it up. There's a lot more to this story than most people realize.
And if you guys have any questions for us, or even for Mr. Calvin Parker or Miss Juanette, let us know, and we'll try to get that to them and get an answer for you guys. Something else I want everyone that's listening to realize is we are not editing his interview at all. We might just shorten some of the dead space, the dead air, but we're not changing his words around at all.
Right. He has had some bad experiences with that kind of thing in the past, which is why he wrote his own book and refused to allow it to be edited. And the Flying Disc Press and Mr. Philip Mantle, they were kind enough not to do any editing on his book. And his book is actually called Pascagoula, The Closest Encounter. And you can actually get that on Amazon. We've got links to where you can purchase it on Amazon on our site. Before we get into his interview, let's do a quick overview just so that you kind of know a little bit more about what happened. Basically, what happened was on October the 11th, 1973, Calvin Parker, who was 19 at the time, and Charles HIckson, who was older, he was in his 40s at the time, they were family friends. Calvin was friends with Charles HIckson's son. Basically, they went fishing one day after work. While they were fishing, they weren't there too incredibly long when suddenly this spaceship, for lack of a better term, came up behind them, and I won't go into detail because Mr. Parker does, but basically they were abducted. So that's the gist of the story. I'm not going to give anything else away because, there's so much that he goes into in detail.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and get into the Calvin Parker interview now. We're going to go ahead and listen to a little bit of it, and then Angela and I will speak about it a little bit, so we'll be back in just a few moments.
Of course, this was in October the 11th of 1973. At this time in my life, I was engaged to get married, but the deal was I was working in the oil field, and I was working 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I said, shoot, I'm going to find me a different type job, so that way I don't have to work so many hours. So I called Charles HIckson up, and he said that he had a job at the shipyard as a ship fitter. Wanted to know if I wanted to come down. I told him, of course I would. So I went down. This was my first day down there to go to work. We clocked in, went to work. We worked all day. And he said, you want to go fishing when we get off? I said, yeah, that sounds good to me. I didn't bring my fishing equipment with me or anything. He said, don't worry, I've got plenty. Well, in the South, you don't borrow people's fishing equipment. That's a bad omen, and I should have knew that right away. It's like borrowing your wife, it's sacred. You get more away with borrowing their fishing equipment. So I knew that was, to start with, going to be a bad day. We got off work, we went by and picked up the equipment. He said, I've never fished down here. He said, well, I have a place over where the old grain elevator used to be. And he said, grain falls off this elevator, and the fish come up and eat it. So we left, we drove over. Of course, we was in my car. I figured since the windows all got broke out, that would be the car we'd be in. So we drove down to the old Shaw Peters shipyard where the old grain elevator and all used to be. When we got out of the car, the first thing I noticed was all the debris there. And I couldn't figure out why in my life, they'd let a place like this get all this junk on. But the flood water would come up, I later found out, bring the debris in, and then when it left, it would keep it there. And the reason I mention this is because of the hard time that we had getting down to where the pier was to fish. It took quite a while. So we parked, we got our fishing equipment, walked down to the pier. While we were sitting on the pier, I was noticing an old steel hull ship, a big Coast Guard cutter across the river. And I was thinking to myself, now how does this ship float with all the steel in it? So we were just sitting there thinking, and that's when I noticed the blue lights coming from behind me out toward the river, reflecting across. And we were trespassing. We was actually trespassing on this land because I seen the signs up and all. And I thought, man, they're coming to put us in jail. So we stood up, turned around and looked. And we noticed there was a bright light then all of a sudden appeared, and what that was a door on the craft that opened up, and it just extremely bright. And we noticed 3 bulky looking figures coming out of this bright light, but it was blinding, so you couldn't hardly tell what they were at the time they was coming until they got right here on us. Well, when they got here, when they got to us, we knew we was messed up then, and bad, because it wasn't nothing that you could tell was from this earth. So 2 of them got a hold of Charlie, and 1 of them got a hold of myself. Well, they automatically, when they got a hold of me, I felt like a puncher in my arm and heard a swish of air going in. And I felt like that was probably an injection to calm us down, to keep us from fighting them. So these things, they floated me up in front of Charlie, so I didn't see him no more. But all I could do was just kind of turn my head a little and roll my eyes to see what was going on, because the rest of me was more or less paralyzed. We got to the door, and I remember thinking, now, I wonder where all this light's coming from. So I was hunting light fixtures up and down, And I noticed it was coming out of the paint on the walls. It was just illuminating from the paint, all these bright lights. He made this old big ugly creature that had me make kind of a left turn. And he was more robotic looking than human looking. And I figured the way he was moving, just mechanical like. So I figured him to be a big robot. And he made a turn and he took me into a different room in there and put me on an examination table. And I was laying at about a 45-degree angle on this table and looking straight up, and I noticed something come out of the ceiling about the size of a deck of cards. Well, it dropped down about a foot from my eyes. Then it started circling my head, and it would click about 4 times time it got back around. And then it just shot back up into the ceiling. And then that's when I noticed this big ugly thing, kind of robot-looking creature, backed off to a corner, and I heard, I didn't hear, but I seen from the corner of my eye this female-looking creature that had walked up to me. And I don't know today that she was a female. I just sensed that it was a female. And she come up, and she looked more or less normal. Her hands was normal, where the other one had like mittens on. And she reached and grabbed me by the cheek like that, and she just pinched my cheek, but I didn't feel any kind of warmth or anything in her body. It was just, I couldn't really feel nothing. I didn't sense any odors or anything, because Pascagoula is known, it don't smell good anyhow. We got pogie plants, we got dead fish, so if there were any odors, I wouldn't have been able to smell them. So she grabbed me by the chin then, and she took her 2 fingers in the center of her hand, and they was a little longer than the rest normal fingers. And she run them down the throat, back behind that little deal that hangs down, and I started choking. And when I started choking, I was gasping for air and all, starting to bleed because she was getting a little rough. And that's when I kind of pulled back a little, and she communicated without moving her mouth, because I was sitting there looking in her face, because at this time I was starting to really hate her, and I wanted to kind of see what she looked like. But she sent through mental telepathy, she sent a little thing, said, "We're not going to harm you." And I don't know why it meant "we're not going to" or "I'm not going to," but she said, we won't harm you, we're not going to. So she backed up, made a little mumbling noise, and then this big ugly creature looked like he just came alive and come over and grabbed me by the arm again. And that's when I felt another injection going into my arm. And it calmed me down again till we got back out. Then they started floating us back out, or floating me back out toward the river, put me in exactly the same place that they picked me up, except I was facing the river with my arms stretched. That's when I heard Charlie say, son, you okay?" And I looked, and he was on the ground, and he was just laying there. Then he jumped up, and we turned around and looked, and the bright lights went off. The little blue hazy lights were still on, and this thing just shot straight up into the air and disappeared.
So I actually grew up in Pascagoula, and one of the things that I do find interesting, though, is, Aaron, you didn't grow up in Pascagoula, but we're cousins. Mm-hmm. Y'all came to see us all the time. Mm-hmm. You spent a lot of time in this area, so it's funny that you never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
And even me, I heard of the story, but what I heard was just a drop in the bucket compared to what really happened. We all heard basically that 2 guys were fishing and they supposedly got abducted by these robot aliens.
Yep.
And then everybody said, "Oh, they were drunk. They were drunk. They're just drunk."
They're high on the marijuana.
And the whole robot alien thing didn't ring true to what you would think of as an alien abduction. So lots of disrespectful stuff went around about that. That's what is so great about Mr. Calvin coming forward after all these years and talking now, because we can understand more of what he went through. It makes a whole lot more sense when you hear the whole story.
The crazy thing about it also is, whenever you first hear about the story, it's Charlie Hickman and Calvin Parker were abducted by aliens. And Charlie actually went on to tell his story more and more and more. But we didn't realize until Calvin came forward that he actually experienced a lot more than Charlie did.
Right.
Like a lot more than Charlie did. Mm-hmm. And if he hadn't come forward, we would have never known this. And we're so thankful for him coming forward after all of these years. This happened in 1973, I believe.
Mm-hmm. 1973.
Yeah, October 1973. And it took him years, up until 2018, to finally come forward. And, you know, there's just a treasure trove of stuff that he experienced. And I say it like that because, you know, this is huge for everybody. This is something that happened to this man that he kept bottled up for 40 plus years. And now he's finally telling his side of the story. And there's just so much that happened. So much more than, hey, we were brought onto a ship and then we were brought back to land. So much more happened.
Yeah, some of the things that he said in our interview I haven't even read in the book or anywhere else. He didn't change his story or anything like that, but just through the course of our discussion, he did say some things that, you know, I hadn't necessarily realized, and I've done thorough research on the subject, so that was really a treat for me. I went from being someone who heard these negative stories and as a kid probably didn't believe it just because, you know, I didn't have all the facts, to being a firm believer that, hey, regardless of what happened to this man or these two men, something happened to them. And it was traumatic. And I mean, honestly, I can't seem to come to any other conclusion other than aliens. Whether they were from space or another dimension, I don't know. But, you know, Aaron, you and I have talked about this concept before. What they're doing with us, abducting us, doing medical exams, tagging us and throwing us back. Mm-hmm. That's the same thing we do to animals in the wild when we're studying them. Yep. You know, we take them and we do these medical exams, we tag them, we throw them back. Yeah, it's traumatic for them. Look at it from the animal's perspective. They're taken out of their homes and forced into this situation. Yeah. And I guess that's one of the things that I took out of the interview as well, is, you know, Mr. Calvin definitely brought it home as to, you know, he didn't have a choice in this situation. This happened to him just the same as if someone here on Earth had abducted him. There was no choice. So imagine how traumatic it is if you're just abducted by a person, let alone something that you don't understand.
Yeah, you've got no concept of what it is, what it wants. It's absolutely insane. And yeah, we've talked about it before, where, you know, hey, just let's go with tagging sharks. You know, they take the shark, bring it to the surface, examine it, measure it, do all of this stuff to it, and then put something on it, the tag itself, and then release it. You know, I'm pretty sure the shark's going to go back to his little shark family, mommy shark and daddy shark and grandpa shark and all of that good stuff.
Don't forget baby shark.
And baby shark. And he's going to say, hey guys, the craziest shit just happened. And they're going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? You're an idiot. You know,
aliens abducted me.
Yeah. These things, like, put this shit on my back, you know, look, it's right here. And they're like, oh, you know, what the hell are you talking about? You know, that's always been there, Bob. So...
Or you did that to yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, because, you know, there are these situations where there's certain physical proof, whether you look at it and you're a believer or you're not a believer, but things being implanted in under the skin. Mm-hmm. Even Mr. Calvin had something that was implanted in his palm.
Yep.
And we were going to get a picture of that, and we failed to do that. So I'm hoping that we can maybe get him to take a picture for us and put it online. But we did look at it, and you could tell there's something under his palm. So it's I don't know. It's just mind blowing to see to look at the whole story.
The only thing I will add is, going back, I know we just talked about this, but there's probably some abductions that happen out that people will not report just because of the things that happen to them. And one of the things that happen is a probe, and even that can be explained by what we do to animals in the wild, because, you know, we've got to know what their diet is, and what are you going to do to figure out what their diet is? You're going to look at their shit. Right?
A la South Park in Cartman.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. There you go.
I love that episode.
The very first episode, by the way.
I love to sing about the moon and the June and the springer.
But yeah, I mean,
that's true though. I mean, even if with paleontologists and dinosaurs, they go back and they look at this fossilized poo to see what it's made of to try and find out what dinosaurs ate. And that's just a part of the study.
This is the weirdest thing. There's so much you can tell by shit, and hunters don't know this. I mean, you can tell what kind of animal it is, what it's been eating, and you've got a general idea of where you can go try to find it. And it's just the weirdest thing in the world, but there's a reason that people are getting probed anally. They want to know what your diet is, and if they can't communicate with you, they can't say, "Hey, what have you been eating?" Lay off the McDonald's or something like that. Eat more greens.
Or maybe just the aliens get a kick out of it.
Yeah, they might.
They're like, "Hey, watch this."
The Saturday Night Live did a skit with Kate McKinnon, and I absolutely love it. Where
she's hilarious, and I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
it's a recurring skit where she's that character.
A little bit different for me, these little gray bastards
they
were
have great
slapping my boobs. Yeah, and she's just like, I lost my pants. They were,
Oh, you've got to check that out. If you haven't seen that, go on YouTube and look up the Kate McKinnon. I guess maybe alien abduction episodes or something like that. But it's a recurring thing they've got, and it is hilarious.
Greatest thing you're going to see in a while.
That's about all the time we have this week. Make sure to join us next Friday for more of our interview with Mr. Calvin Parker and Mrs. Waynette Parker. Remember, if you have a story that you'd like to share with us, just send us an email to paranormalgumbo@gmail.com. Also, check out our website at paranormalgumbo.com. And don't forget to like our Facebook page so that you can stay updated on the most recent Paranormal Gumbo news. We'd like to give a special thanks to the Pascagoula Library and McNarby Gaming in Goche, Mississippi. We recorded parts of the show in both locations. Check out McNarby Gaming online at mcnarbygaming.com. That's MACNARB gaming.com.